Hello, in today's video we're going to make a portrait in Conte, pastel, and white charcoal. These are the pencils I'll be using. They are Conte à Paris. So I'm starting in the same way as usual with this big mechanical pencil. Usually start in the bridge of the nose, just trying to get a general shape in for the ocular cavity, the nose area, the mouth, etc. The marks I'm making are very, very light. They might be pretty indistinguishable at this point, but that is just so that I don't go too far too soon. If you're familiar with graphite at all, once you put too heavy a hand to it, it will become very shiny, like very mirrored almost, and you'll never be able to put anything over the top of it. So just very, very lightly sketching out these areas. I'm going to take this kneaded eraser and lightly tap some of the areas that I had made the marks a little too heavy. And then I'm just going to blur them out a little bit with my finger just to smudge any harsh lines. This is a General's white charcoal pencil, and I'm going to start laying in some of the highlight areas. Now notice I'm very far back from the tip of the pencil so that I can not only press very lightly, but then also it's going to keep me a little more objective, a little more away from the piece if I hold the pencil far away. I'm just going to blend those marks with this bristle brush. This is a Trekell bristle brush, a round one, number 4. And I'm also going to start adding in some powdered pastel I have off to the side. Here I'm just taking away some of the pastel that I've laid down with this mechanical eraser. It's a nice tool to bring it back to the mid-tone of the, I think this is clay-toned Fabriano paper. Okay, time to start putting in the Conte pencil. I'm lightly laying down the first layer of Conte pencil. This is the lightest blue I have. I will list the product number in the description. So what I'm doing is I'm going to work around each area and I'm going to lay a bit down, then I'm going to blend it. Right now I'm using a Q-tip, but I will also be utilizing my finger in blending a lot, especially for Conte. I use my hands a lot for blending because it's just really soft and I like the it's kind of like whenever you press it down, it kind of adheres to the paper more, and I enjoy that part of it with my finger, whereas if you're using a brush or a Q-tip, it kind of can move the pigment around too much. That being said, if you have any toxicity concerns or you'd rather not use your bare skin to blend any sort of dry pigmentation or any kind of pigmentation, um, there are gloves. We have other devices for which to blend, so don't feel like I'm forcing anyone to do this. I like to start alternating some of the supplies at this point. I will put a layer down of the Conti, then notice that the highlights need to be bumped up a little bit, so then I will go back to the white charcoal pencil, and then so on and so forth, blending and working and sort of building each layer that I'm making up at the same time, to where if something happens and I need to step away from the piece, it's not that I've left it in a very strange place. It kind of all makes sense together at the same stage. A fun thing about Conti for me is that it keeps me from being too precise anywhere. I, as soon as I blend it, it's going to, be very diffused. And that to me is a little more realistic than sometimes a hyper finished piece. While working in Conti, it does take quite a bit of layering to build up the amount of saturation that I'm looking for, but it does tend to go by quickly because of how smooth the Conti is. Here I'm just using my tried and true makeup sponge just to cover more area in a short amount of time, and also trying to make this still remain pretty soft and diffused. I'm now introducing a different color Conti, which I will again list in the description. This is a darker violet purpley color, and so I want to use this to really saturate the dark values. So it's not going to be like the blackest of the blacks, but it is going to add a nice element. So I really want two tones or two values in the darks, and I'm going to achieve that with the lighter blue and then with this violet color. I'm typically going to blend pretty much every mark I'm going to be putting down. Up until the end stages, I like to, you know, keep this very soft so that I can then later pick and choose where I want to have very interesting line work. But for now, most everything that I'm putting down, I'm going to render. I know I'm just singing Conti's praises nonstop, but I really love how soft that it can get. Sometimes charcoal, when you put it down, it will keep those lines, and it can be a little difficult to blend if you aren't pressing softly and building up the layers. But this pencil, or these pencils, I mean, are like the texture is just so nice and soft that they blend together really, really well with not a lot of effort. It might seem like I've jumped ahead a lot, but I really have only just filled in this left bottom area, like the middle and left area with the Conte pencils, and then blended it out with the makeup sponge. So between the last take and this right here, not much has changed actually, even though it looks like a bigger area has been filled in. So what I'm doing now is I am going to be separating the form to the apparel that he's wearing with just these hue changes. And I'm not really sure where I want them to overlap and diffuse with each other, but I do know that I want to keep the very left side blue, and then I want the face, like the very shaded area of his face, to be purple, to where it kind of signifies that that is going to be the darkest darks right there. This video should just probably be called Blending Forever in Conti, because it does take a while to build up all the layers, but there's not a lot of actual drawing going on anymore, it's just filling it in. This is a General's pastel pencil, and it's like just like a little pinky color. Again, I'll list it in the description. Um, I'm just going to use this on like kind of a mid-tone area, like in the eye, it's a little pinker, just to give it a little more life. I'm also using the lighter blue in the mid-tone areas as well to make it pop more. This is just powdered Sennelier pastel, and I'm going to apply that in some of the highlight areas on the forehead to make it really soft, make it pop out, but not, I don't really want to commit to putting any pencil marks down just yet. So I'm just going to try to build up a nice bright layer with the brush and the powdered pastel. using my trusty wax paper to keep me from putting my hand right into the face. It really does help me because I'm pretty shaky, so sometimes I need that stability. If I don't use wax paper, I will use a maul stick. But by maul stick, I mean a paintbrush. I'm gonna really start going in and trying to get that dark mass on the side of the face put in so where it really will kind of pop forward more, just really make it more three-dimensional. This is another General's pastel pencil. This one, I think it is called Violet. I'm going to use this to clean up some areas and maybe put in more detail work. Um, the Conte pencil is great, but getting that to a very fine point is difficult because the pencils are really fat and the lead in it is just it kind of can crumble really easily if you are using your razor blade. So sometimes I'll just bring in a hue that's similar in the pastel pencil just to get some of the detail work back. For this part in particular, I didn't like how much detail work I was getting, so I'm going to go ahead and blend it now with this brush instead. I was getting a little too hyper focused, a little too eager to bring out so many details, and it's not working for this piece. I think that the softer the better for this one. And that's just something that will be to your own personal preference. This mechanical eraser is great to bring out highlights in hairs, whether it's on your head and your eyebrows, wherever. It's really great to get in there and get those hairs that are catching the light. This blue is a new one for me. I've only used it maybe twice before, but I am so into it. I love the richness of the blue that it is. I'm just such a geek for it right now. Still just blending and building each layer up at the same time. I know that I want it to look a certain way. I want it to have a certain impact, but you just gotta keep building the layers until you feel that you've done it. That's where you want it to be. I've decided to go ahead and separate him from the tone of the paper by using this General's white charcoal pencil around the outside of the portrait. So I'm going to kind of line it lightly first just to make sure that I even like where this is going. I can still erase most of this out, just kind of like testing it. Going to put a really light layer and then you'll see I do commit to it because I really like how it looks. Here is the finished Conte pastel and white charcoal piece. Later that night, off camera, I had just a whim that he needed something more, so I added a white pastel stump to the outside of the portrait, and that's just unblended, but I think that it added something nice to the piece. As always, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really could not do this without you.